Do we have people who are new to the group today that would like to introduce themselves? Don't see anybody. And also, I'd like to ask if anybody has any announcements that they would like to make about something that's going on in their neighborhood they'd like the group to know about. Marshall, is your hand up? Okay.
I was just stretching, I think. I don't know, some type of involuntary.
Okay, stretch, everybody stretch. Fair enough. Fair enough. So the agenda is a little bit different this time than we have had in the past. We're trying to lean into holiday celebration and a little bit away from the normal agenda. So if there's no other announcements, I do have one announcement that I would like to make. The board has worked on a list of different things they'd like to consider as in terms of a priority list. So we're asking if the members of the group could possibly take a look at this Google form and help us prioritize the way we're going to work on different projects in the coming year. So this is for the leadership group. If you could just hop onto that form and take a look at the different survey questions, and then feel free to go ahead and give us your opinion on what you think should be prioritized when we're looking at programming and projects for next year. So with that said, today's agenda is, as I said, a little bit different. What we've done is we've asked some of our really great first responder partners here today to talk to the leadership group about how they feel the leadership group is contributing to the community. So just, in the holiday spirit of trying to find ways to think about the way that we are doing our best in our community and what that effect is having in our community. So in terms of a preparedness tip, I'm going to just give you one thing, and that is that I urge you at this time of year to really just take a beat. If you look at our preparedness calendar, that's what we ask for this month of December, is just to think about what you've done and what you'd like to do and consider what your goals might be for next year. And also, of course, look back and see all of the things that this group has accomplished and you personally have accomplished over the last year, as really a great opportunity to be grateful for the things that we've had happen and the things that we've done, and look forward to the future and what we're going to be doing next and moving forward. So I've already started a list of things I'm excited about doing for next year, and I hope you all will get a list together also of things you're excited about doing, not only professionally, but also here in this group as well as personally. So we've invited all of these people here today, and I'm going to go in order. They're aware of the order that we're going in, and we're just going to ask each of these first responders to just talk to the group and tell us a little bit about how they feel that COPE has been working and how they feel they've been making a contribution. So they each have just a few minutes to give us a message as a leadership group. So I'm going to start with you, Chief Nicolls, if you'd like to go first.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nancy. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I just would like to start it off by saying that the Abercrombies have been amazing partners over the years, and they're the perfect example of what it means to have a COPE group. It's a neighbor helping neighbor, rallying together individuals to make their community stronger and more safe as we come into major emergencies. So it's one of those things that I firmly believe that Fitch Mountain and the end of Mill Creek had the results they had in the major fire events that they were exposed to because of the excellent leadership and community organization prior to those fire events occurring. So thank you very much, Pat and Priscilla, for doing everything that it is that you do. But why I support COPE, and exactly what I just said, that we value the neighbors helping neighbors to work together to address the concerns for their community. So IDing the problem, planning and organizing their group to face those future fire events or emergencies. It's not just a fire problem, but rallying together so that in a time of a rapidly expanding incident or when communications become an issue, there's the neighbor and neighbor helping each other get through that crisis to get out safely on the other side of the problem. And ultimately, I'd just like to put out there that we got a great break in 2021, but we will see other emergencies in years to come. And so keep up the amazing work that you're doing. And I look forward to our working together and preparing your community the best we can for those future events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Nicolls. And next we have Chris Godley, Director of Department of Emergency Management.
Hi there, everybody. Can you hear me now, Nancy?
Yep.
Great. Sorry, literally, as Ben was tailing off, the gardener started the mower 10 feet from my office. So switch over to a headset. I'm hoping you can continue to hear me. Hi, everybody. Chris Godley with County Emergency Management. I was there in 2017 as well. I ran out of my house, crazy. I know what that feeling is like. We don't want to go back there. But what I wanted to just say today was just a big fat thank you. The work that you've done is really impressive, not just because you've been able to connect with each other, but more importantly, you've been able to connect with a larger group of residents in each of your areas, which is no mean feat. I know what that looks like when you try to go knock on doors and second homeowners and people that don't like anybody knocking on their doors. I totally get that. So moving through that and being able to establish a set of networks and this larger leadership group here today is just so impressive to me. I just wanted to also mention briefly here, and I'll just share my screen very quickly, that we're very pleased here in Sonoma County to have had a long tradition of emergency management and public safety efforts that go back to the 1970s. They were all started by a gentleman named Pete Paterka, a retired Army colonel, veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He came to the county, started the search and rescue team for the sheriff, and also started the Office of Emergency Services. So Pete knew that things could go bad, things that could go sideways, but he always felt that if we just get ourselves organized and connected, we can deal with it. And so his motivation was not the fear that many people feel after the experiences like we saw in 2017, but instead the optimism that we can connect, that being prepared empowers us. And bringing that forward, I'm very happy today to present COPE Northern Sonoma County with the Pete Paterka Award for 2021. We make this award not lightly. We've got dozens of people nominated every year, but your group, your leadership really does reflect not just the best the county has to offer, but it does reflect in many ways that same sense of optimism, that this is not Armageddon. We're not just have to sit there and take it. We can step forward and move into our power, connected with each other, educated and informed, acquiring resources, and we can make a difference. And I think your group's done that in spades. I'm really pleased to see how far we've come, even with the number of events that we've experienced in the last several years here in Sonoma County. With COVID overlaying it all, we've had flood and we've had multiple fires. And in each of those, we've done better and better, not just in traditional response, but more and more with how the community feels connected and engaged. We still have a long way to go to really reach some of our underserved populations, but in many ways, your groups do represent the true heart and soul of what the county has. And that resiliency is not just some French term meaning anything you want it to mean. It really means the strength that we experience here in Sonoma County. And the last thing that I'll offer, and I'll get off the screen here, is that me personally, after so many years in disaster land, the way I think of disasters is they can be terribly destructive. Infrastructure, property damage, disruption. But the way I think of it is we every day weave a social fabric by connecting with each other. Kids going to school, us connecting with the postman or postal carrier, going to the store, going to work, neighborhood associations, those weave that social fabric, and disasters can tear it. They can punch a hole right through it. And it's very hard sometimes to reweave that fabric and put it back together. But your group represents what I feel are one of the few, what I call steel threads that are now woven into that fabric, that make that fabric much more stronger and resilient and much more capable of dealing with whatever may come in the future. So with that, I wanted to thank you again for your efforts. Just present the award for COPE Northern Sonoma County and just say, God bless you and all the work that you've done. That's it.
Thanks so much, Chris. So yeah, why not? A round of applause, absolutely. And congratulations on the award, all of you, because that's your award. Next, Misti.
All right, thanks, Nancy. My name is Misti. I'm with the Sheriff's Office. I think I've met you all. You know, to me, COPE really exemplifies community-oriented policing in a way that maybe it wasn't intended to originally, but here we are, where the community and law enforcement is working together to keep everybody safe. And we usually think of that in law enforcement from a criminal perspective, reducing crime. But in this case, it's the relationships that we've built and the preparedness work that you've done in your own homes and with all of your neighbors to keep everybody safe during a disaster. It's exactly the same thing. We're working together to keep everybody safe. Because of the work that you guys are doing, that you have done over the past several years and continue to do, you're more likely to come out of a fire, survive it uninjured, and your neighbors are too. And that is exceptional. And not only that, but our deputies are more likely to come out uninjured because you guys are teaching people how and when to evacuate. And the better that everybody gets at evacuating through education programs like you guys do, the better off we all are, including us, in getting other ways so Ben and his people can fight the fire, and Marshal too. So I mean, honestly, you guys are the model that I point to. I work with COPE groups and preparedness groups all over the county. And I regularly tell people that Northern Sonoma County knows what they're doing and that you are the model to replicate throughout our county. So for myself as a resident of Sonoma County and from every person here at the Sheriff's Office, I just want to say from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you so much, Misti. Keith, is Supervisor Gore on his way, or are you speaking instead of Supervisor Gore?
He was planning on being here. I'll text him right now to find out.
No worries. We'll just come right back to him whenever he gets on. I know he's got some other things going on today.
Okay, thank you.
So is Chief Jenkins here? Not yet. Okay, let me go to Chief Collister.
Hi, everybody. A hard act to follow on all the thank yous, but I got to tell you, you guys are rocking it. So COPE to me needs action. I wouldn't have got all this stuff done without everybody pushing and being organized in Northern Sonoma County. It's amazing how much work we've got done. And I know there's a lot of COPE group leaders out there that think, you know, my group is small. I can't get the information out. But I got to tell you, when the emergencies come, those people are going to come to you, and you're going to have a whole network of people behind you, and first responders and government officials. And just like Misti said, during the Mill Creek fire, I got to tell you, when that was happening, the Fitch Mountain COPE jumped right in, started making all the notifications. There was just this overlap and all that. And I'm just telling you, you guys have a voice. The voice is being heard. These grants that are coming out, the CWPPs that you guys are doing for your community, the grant funding, they're looking for that. And you guys had that message out so early that people are getting them done, and projects are getting funded. Mill Creek's a perfect example. All the work that Marshal and his crew has been doing up there, we've been noticed for other grants that are coming out. So I just want to say you guys are amazing. Keep up the good work. And I know that the city of Healdsburg now has a active COPE leadership group. So we're going to have some meetings on our own. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Linda. And next we have Chief Turbeville.
There's no time limit. I could talk for a while, right?
You can talk as long as you want. We are so far ahead of schedule here without any new announcements and things.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, to me, there's just so many things to say, and it's great seeing everybody. and Chris talked about it, the frustration during emergencies of thinking, as a responder, could we have done more? Could we get the message out better? And so I think about COPE, it's like, it's getting that, and somebody made this analogy before, but the last 50 feet of getting a message out is the hardest part. We can do all the media stuff. We can have all the meetings we want to do, but some people aren't going to get it, whether they aren't connected because they don't have email, don't have internet access, whatever it might be, or they just choose not to be connected. And that neighbor helping neighbor, just the right balance that COPE has of government involvement, but not government involvement. So you can be nimble. You guys probably, well, you did. I mean, no one keeps track of these things, but you guys pushed the boundaries on evacuation tags. Patty and the Wooler group, remember? And now there's evacuation tags. So just kind of, and Mill Creek was looking at magnets for mailboxes. So pushing the envelope on that stuff. I think about Linda doing the burn piles on Fitch Mountain a couple weekends ago. In the past, you might not have known who to call about, hey, is somebody burning something on Fitch Mountain or is that a real fire? And so while you have a connection to us, that's also the other way around. We can proactively get information out to you guys. So that way, if you do see smoke, you can tell your neighbor, yeah, that's Linda doing burn piles on Fitch Mountain. It's to reduce the intensity of the next fire. So that communication is so key to go both ways. For me, having these meetings helps me understand. I guess I'm not a normal person. I can listen to a scanner and tell you everything about a scanner, but a person who never listens to a scanner has no idea what anybody's saying. So you give me that perspective, well, what it's not like to be institutionalized. Like what does normal people talk about? And how can we better get the message out to folks? How can we explain stuff better? Doing the video briefings or just saying what it is. Like Mill Creek, it doesn't look good, and just getting the word out. So whether that's good or bad, just, having that connection. So I think that communication, that balance of grassroots, government involvement, endorsement, Linda touched on the projects. I know Jeff's always working on stuff, Pat Priscillo, the PG&E, the funding we've gone after, and all these other opportunities, all these little things are making a difference. We can have the best idea for a project, but unless we have someone to be a community champion or someone to gather the neighbors together and sell the idea or explain the idea, and then be the go-to person like Dan's doing and others have done, our projects are just ideas that fall apart. And so you guys are absolutely critical. And I think that's why, we can continue to get good things done with that type of relationship. I'm also on the Fire Safe, as is Jeff, and Fire Safe is a good organization, but really when I think about who's getting stuff done in this county, it's community leaders. It's not Fire Safe Sonoma. Fire Safe Sonoma is the fiscal sponsor, keeping a big view. Cal Fire keeping the big view, but it's the community leaders that are really getting things done. And so there's so much I could, go on and on about, but I think the biggest thing, or two biggest things, we don't know how many emergencies each of you have prevented, how many bad days each of you prevented, how many fires you might have prevented. If you know how to do CPR and help your neighbor, how many you've accounted for people. And that's, when I think about the greatest thing, it's Mill Creek. 10-mile dead end road, Walbridge fires is bearing down on that community. Everyone that wanted to be notified, everyone that was part of the COPE system, there was accountability. No one can do that. Government can't do that. And that was because of, they're not here with us anymore, but Mark and now Dan and Mooney are carrying that on. That is phenomenal. If we have bad days, at least we know that everyone's going to get taken care of. No one's going to get left behind. And that's absolutely huge. It made it so maybe firefighters didn't have to get put in bad spots, or law enforcement didn't have to go in and do things that were beyond dangerous. And so that's just huge. And no one died. Yes, we all have emotional scars from that, but everyone made it out. And so, COPE gives you a sense of doing something, a sense of hope, some calmness, someone to turn to get information, that two-way communication. So with that, can't thank you guys enough. And, happy holidays. Good we got rain. Let's have no emergencies for a while and watch the Russian River, Lake Sonoma fill up and have a mellow 2022. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Marshall. Hi, Supervisor Gore, welcome. You're up next.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see everybody. God, every day, I I just coughed. Every time I cough now, I feel like I have to say, like, I think I don't have COVID, even though we're on a Zoom or whatever. I just, first of all, want to wish you all happy holidays. Finishing up on where Marshall kind of ended up. A couple things that are important to me is that this year really was the first year in a long time that we were able to enjoy a bit of October and November. We were able to get those rains, and while that was nice, that the rains brought us that sense of peace and allowed us to saturate into a time of the season that predominantly in the past is the one that we enjoy the most. Harvest season is I want to make sure that I'm with you all in aligned to make sure that we're confident based on the work that we do going forward, not based on rain or not, or doing rain dances. So, these are for all events. We all know this, but I want to start by just honoring the work that you all are doing on the ground. I sent out a note to some of you maybe a week or so ago about a new round of vegetation management proposals that's being requested by the county. It's great to see some folks on this call who worked their butts off to be able to get funding on the ground this past year, get stuff in place. I mean, Jeff, I see, think about sitting on your porch and thinking about how we could get the money to do a CWPP and then at the same time get the funding to be able to do veg management. Up in Cloverdale this past year, I used some funding out of my office, about $20,000 to bring in supervised adult crews to clean out a big portion of the Russian River near Riverfront Park, and we're going to continue that next year. So having that all hands on deck approach of Cloverdale Fire, and then the development of the CWPP, and then the tower up there that Johannes is working on, comms tower, and then the expo that was just, you all said this was going to be a success, and because you put it out there in the ether and you made sure it was a success, you manifested that, and it was an honor to be there with you all as well. Then I kind of keep going down along the south, and I think about areas of where we're at with Geyserville and the application, the Good Fire Revival, Margie Henselman, and in the days following 2017 when we were up there using air horns because we don't have sirens out, seeing how far they would go. And then I think about Dan and others taking up the mantle up in Mill Creek, and then the amazing Abercrombies in between their trips to go out and see the world. They come back and make sure that working with Linda that we get things done up in Fitch Mountain. So and then we all know. So I see some folks from Sonoma County Fire as well. And my district is between districts 4 and District 5 with Supervisor Hopkins. You have about 85% of the forest land in Sonoma County. We got those efforts locally. We're linking them up with the BRIC grant that is going to deploy into some key strategic areas and provide more money to go into the issue of home hardening, but also defensible space around your house, and then this bigger community issue, which is kind of calming areas, they call them, for fires. Right? Like, where do you do enhanced vegetation management, not just like shaded fuel breaks and other things, but to be able to move and deploy and get things done, and provide areas where firefighters could gain ground on something. I want to acknowledge that this is a crazy time because not only do you have this renewed effort on vegetation management and stewardship, but on the other side, I have people who are lobbying my board right now saying either we're not going to support a fire tax if it doesn't put all the money towards vegetation management. And then I have other folks from more the environmental side, like the Sierra Club, Conservation Action, and others who are saying we don't support vegetation management because it's a trick to go and create more ag areas in Sonoma County. And so I want to state that, like, what our job to do going forward is, number one, is to make sure that you all, your voices, are the voices with ground truth and with living in these areas is at the table, because it's the voice that gets beyond the people who are engaged ancillarily, who read something sent out from either one side of the political spectrum or the other, and it says, hey, send these form letters to the Board of Supervisors. You all are the ones who cut through that. And I want to tell you that when you're there at the table, And when we take these items up, you hold accountability over my colleagues and myself. I told you that I want that, right? That's why I've always worked hard to mobilize with you all, and to the point where you even put pressure on me to take more action. That is the good side of community building and action. And I want to remind the folks who are engaged in COPE here is that, you know, the multidimensional part of your work is that, you know, as I'm thinking through this, and I just mentioned Jeff Peters and others, is like, on the other side is that many of you who are COPE leaders are actively engaged with me on getting the funding in place for Northern Sonoma County Fire, just like we've gotten the funding in place for Sonoma County Fire District, you know, and we did the consolidations out there, and now we need to move on to those. So, you know, this idea that it's only about one thing is really a farce. And I've never seen the kind of community engagement to a widespread level as I've seen with the COPE groups coming out of 2017. We were able to get like real impact, 300 people in a crazy rural area to get engaged. There's always those who won't, you know, and we need to be able to take action where it is. Many of you know our trials and tribulations with the veg management ordinance at the county, and the different areas that I was proud to be a part of writing that in the beginning with, I think it was called Fire Free Fitch at the time, with Laura, what was her name, at Teets, and getting that through, and then it not getting funded, and then putting funding into it, and then this, and then that. And now we got, you know, goats out there. We got more work to do. So I just want to state that, like, for me, the whole world of embracing the government word mitigation, which really means risk reduction, is a personal one at this point. I, like many of you, I mean, I have people come up to me and are like, hey, thank you so much for doing those videos during the fires and the floods. I'm like, man, you know what I want to do is I would never want to do another one of those videos. Like, I appreciate that Marshall does mornings with Marshall with me, and we get out there on the trunk of his car and remind people that you don't hold information to yourself if you have access. That's the most important thing that I think resonates with this kind of work we're doing is that if you have access to information, you've got to share it, as imperfect or as scary as it is, so that people can prepare themselves. But outside of that, I don't want to have to do those videos anymore. I want to pre-defeat fires, or have fires during good times, and likewise with other kinds of issues, floods, debris removal, things like that. So I just want to stress that there's, you know, as much as we're hearing these monies coming along and these other things, there is a huge opportunity right now. I was over at Coffee Park on Saturday with Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Congressman Mike Thompson and some of the fire survivors from Coffee Park, and they were announcing the funding, the resilience funding, wildfire resilience funding attached to the infrastructure bill, and then also what would be put in more with this whole Build Back Better Act. Doesn't look like it's going to pass in the current iteration that it is, but looks like there'll still be a lot there. So my goal with really not just you all, but with Nancy, Chris Godley, our team, Marshall, and others, is to identify, as these big announcements come out with big funding that we have been lobbying for, is to make sure that we help it hit the ground. A couple other things that I want you all, like, I would like to figure out a way maybe to be Nancy on a, like, if however often, if it's a quarterly call or something with this group, for a couple of reasons. One is I'm on the governor's wildfire and forest resilience task force. We are going to host the governor and his team here on Cinco de Mayo around that time. So so there will be a big regional confab on the strides that we've taken and the things that are still needed, but using this as an example of that. That'll be around the 5th and 6th of May. And then at the same time, I was asked by the FEMA regional administrator who we worked with through our fire recovery, Bob Fenton, to consider being on FEMA's National Advisory Council. That was just announced 2 weeks ago, that I'm now on the FEMA National Advisory Council. I don't look at these things as feathers in my cap. I look at them as platforms to be able to take the stories and the ground truth of what we have and drive meaningful change. The BRIC grant that we got I took the examples of what we worked, and there's so many people that made that brick grant happen. Those who wrote the application, those who coordinated, folks like Nancy and Lisa and Permit Sonoma and others that really went through the process. But ultimately, it's about all of us. Like that. One of the reasons that was even available is because we all took our stories and we testified before Congress and we demanded change and the creation of a brick program and the voices, whether you guys were sharing them directly or sharing them through myself and others, that's real stuff. So I'm not going to, wax philosophical. I'm just going to stop and say that there are resources on the ground in a plenitude now. And so we went from having a dearth of resources where it's like, oh God, it's even hard to pass a veg management ordinance and then get it funded, to now where we have local, state, and federal money coming in. And so it's a little bit of a cacophony. Went from no sound to full like klaxons and bang, bang, bang. And now we got all these efforts going on. And so the goal, I think, for all of us should be how we get together with regions and other things at the beginning of the year and really understand what's going on and how it creates a more resilient future. I'll stop by adding one final thing, which is a perfect example of this. Is I was on the call last maybe 3 weeks ago with PG&E, okay, and they were showing us what their proposed vegetation management process for clearing around lines and everything was for this year. They showed us this map, and it had a lot of places in our district. They talked about the work they had done in Fitch Mountain. They talked about the work that they want to do around Cloverdale and out Skag Springs Road, and where they're working on kind of heading out into Dry Creek area and some of that too. And I was taking screenshots of the map and everything, and I should show you guys the map. I don't have them on screenshot, but they said the map wasn't public, right? So we're still operating in a world where, a group like that's been hammered for not being transparent, like wants to show somebody like me their map of risk reduction and doing their job. But then they don't even, the staff members on the phone don't even have the authority other than to say, no, you can't share this. I'm like, why are you afraid of sharing work you're doing? But I guess that's to be said is that I can share that information. So anyways, there's a lot we need to know what everybody's doing on the ground so that we can leverage impact. And I just appreciate you guys. And in the coming, I even though it's taken a long time for a variety of reasons, I've been more frustrated than anybody about it. We do have an item coming to our board in early January to provide substantial funding to North Sonoma County Fire, Sonoma County Fire District taking over part of Bodega Bay Emergency Services, and then South County with the volunteer fire companies and some more into Kenwood. So that's going to be county money that's put perpetually into the future. I basically bludgeoned a lot of money forward from another portfolio into it. I wasn't in charge of, I wasn't on the ad hoc to write it up. There's still a discussion about a fire tax. You guys need to be front and center and saying, yes, no, maybe so. And so with that, I'll pass it back. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Gore. Really appreciate all the comments and the great update of information. Next, Jim. There you are. I see you. Hi, Jim.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'm not sure what else I can say that hasn't already been said. I will say I'm relatively new to the COPE program. I started my job in June, and Windsor COPE was really just starting to get its legs under, if you will. And if it wasn't for Priscilla and Nancy and Diane and people there kind of leading the charge and showing us how to get it done, I'm not sure we'd be where we are. Well, I think we've done a nice job getting the word out and really getting some community involvement. There's still some work to do. But I will say that I would say the number one thing about this whole program has been the communication and the support from the other COPE groups. I have 3 other groups that are interested who we've been in contact with up at Foothill Ranch and Upper Alpine and those areas who want to get going too. So word is getting out, which is really nice. As I said, and without the communication support from established groups, I mean, North County is probably the, boy, they are you guys kind of set the bar for everybody else. And like I say, where a lot of groups may say, well, we did the legwork and this is our baby, it hasn't been that way at all. It's really been a true support network, which is really nice to see. still growing. One area that we have definitely been talking about that we need to get out to is our Latino community. They're still kind of in the dark, and we need to figure out some means of getting some bilingual participants in the program to really reach out to these underrepresented groups that are out there. And that's something, especially in the Windsor area, that we really want to focus on and get in there. And same with the seniors. We just touched on seniors here in Windsor a couple months ago. That's another group that really needs our support and needs to have this kind of information out there. They are going to be our most vulnerable community in the event when the next big event comes along. We don't know when that is. Otherwise, it's been great. It's been a great program. And without the dedication and the hard work from those of you who are leading the charge, we wouldn't be where we are, and we certainly wouldn't be getting to where we want to be. So that's about all I've got. Thank you to all of you, especially Marshall. You've been instrumental in this. As I said, Priscilla and Linda and all of you have really done a lot of legwork here for those of us who are really starting just to come up and get going in the program. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jim. Welcome, Ariel. It's your turn.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's great to see you. And I'm so jealous of your incredible pizzazz today in your hair bow. So I'll try to make it snappy to try to match that. But it's so nice to see many of your faces, so many familiar faces out there. And I am just honored to get to speak with you all today. I hold COPE and our leaders in such high regard. I get to work with so many of you in Northern Sonoma County. I am the Vice Mayor of the city of Healdsburg, and happy to share that this year, the city of Healdsburg was able to fund not only our CWPP, but also wildland radios for our Healdsburg Fire Department for when they go out doing work outside of the city limits. And, in looking at our WUI in Healdsburg, all surrounding the city and areas in our community where we have our open space preserves, it's great to be able to work in partnership with our division chief, Linda Collister, and the Ag and Open Space District. Thank you, Supervisor Gore, for appointing me to the Fiscal Oversight Commission for the Ag and Open Space District, so I can play a role in between these very important agencies and ensuring that as we are doing the mitigation work necessary to protect our community from the wildfire risk, while we're also threading that needle to protect our sensitive species and habitats in those protected areas. This year, we had the blessing of receiving the Coastal Commission grant for Fitch Mountain and the Healdsburg Ridge, as well as the Callahan property, but then also the challenges of how do we navigate the environmental clearance to be able to actually do the vegetation management work necessary. And it has been a pleasure to work in partnership with Chief Turbeville, CAL FIRE, the city of Healdsburg, and the Ag and Open Space District in figuring out how do we tackle the CAL VTP process so we actually can get those funds into action and ensure that we're getting the work done. I remember in the fall of 2019, I was standing in the kitchen next to Diane Urban on West Soda Rock Lane, and Chief Turbeville was also there. And we were at a neighborhood association meeting, and they were talking about how do we get organized in case there is a wildfire in our area, and what are the ways in which this community could be better prepared to turn from a neighborhood association into an organization that's thinking about wildfire risk and mitigation. And I talked to them about the work that COPE was doing. I talked about Priscilla and Pat Abercrombie over on Fitch Mountain. And I said, if you want to look at a model of people who are organizing and getting prepared, please reach out to them. And the Chief Turbeville was up next in our queue of things we were talking about. This was prior to me being on the city council in Healdsburg. I was representing on the planning commission for the county. So I was there talking about land use issues. And 6 days later, the Kincaid fire started. And so the timing was pretty, I still get goosebumps on the back of my neck thinking about, the timing of that, and Diane asking the question, how do we get organized? How do we prepare? And I said, please reach out to these COPE groups. Unfortunately, when disaster strikes, we are not going to have enough first responders to come and talk to every single household in Sonoma County and help you get ready. You've got to be prepared. You've got to start your communication networks. Let's get these systems up and running so that we're ready to go. And I'm so grateful that Diane is here on the call as a COPE leader, and that Pat and Priscilla have been able to, amongst you and many others, have been able to help form these groups, as well as Nathan, I see you from the COAD, and we've had an opportunity to get to work together with the COAD as well. And so many incredible community leaders stepping up for your neighborhoods and making sure that the communication is there, that people feel supported, and that they know what is going on during times of disaster. And I am just truly, truly thankful that you guys are taking this time out of your very important lives, or your busy jobs, or your busy retirement, to do this work on the ground in community, because without you, it would not be possible, and we would not be as prepared as we are as a community. And that is really what we need in times of disaster and, and post. Unfortunately, the resources just aren't there. I think that was probably one of the biggest eye openers of when I went from being an advocate in the community to being a part of government a year ago when I was elected to city council in Healdsburg. It's really just not that robust. When you look behind the curtain and you're like, oh, wow, so this is it. Okay, we better beef up our COPE efforts, because there's not a lot of actual activity happening there behind the scenes. We are it. And not to say there isn't amazing training and first responders out there, but I think we've all seen, the worst of it. And so I want to just thank all of you for being so proactive in your communities and acknowledging where the gaps still persist. Thank you to Jim for mentioning our Latino community and our monolingual Spanish speakers and many other languages of our non-English speakers in Sonoma County. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are making really great progress thanks to all of you. So I wish you a very happy holidays, and so thankful we had a mellow year this year, and looking forward to many more Zoom meetings and eventually in-person meetings to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ariel. Really appreciate that. So now I come to the part of the program where I ask if any of you other folks have something to say, and I know Priscilla would certainly have something she'd like to say, but we invite you all to just gush whatever you'd like to.
Can I gush first?
Gush away.
It's incredible to be here after we just started. I mean, really, we just started, and we've come a long way. We still have a lot of work to do, but I wanted to recognize the fact that James Gore was actually the person who brought me together with Margie and with the Mill Creek gentleman to get COPE going as a larger group, all of us talking to each other and not just our individual communities. That was an important moment when the pocket fire happened and Marshal was there, and we started talking about how we can become better organized. And I also just really wanted to recognize a theme that was brought up around how we were so scared, that a lot of it was fear-based. And now we've come to a place where we're much more confident, and that we have each other, and we have the knowledge that we need to keep ourselves safe. We have wonderful communication with various, governmental agencies, our first responders. We're all looking out for each other, which is an incredible place to be after coming from, again, that terrible fire in 2017 that made us all very scared, and all feeling very isolated and alone. And this has been a really wonderful way to come together, to advocate, and to really have each other's backs and be innovative and find ways to find solutions to make us safer and better prepared. And all of that goes to all of us that are here today, working together and being willing to step up and take the time and energy and intelligence that it takes to do it better. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. I'm grateful to every single one of you that's here today. I know you, and I want you to know that I see you, and I really appreciate everything. So happy holidays to everyone. Did you want to say anything? Oh, no.
next? Anybody else have something they'd like to add to the conversation here? Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank the first responders who were very generous with their comments and their thoughts, and tell you how reciprocated it is. There's so much that we have been able to do because of help that we've received as volunteers from everybody from Supervisor Gore, Marshal helping us with maps and how to prepare neighbors to be better prepared, and all kinds of things. And it's grown. It's grown every single year, bigger than the year before. We could not have put on the expo that we put on with 1,500 people, including 20% from the Latino community, if it went for a whole lot of help. Misti arranged for the helicopter rescue, the demonstration and things like that, but it's ongoing. I just sent a note to Jim. We finished training 131 Windsor High School juniors and seniors in AED and CPR, and we're about to train 60 more in CERT training this March. That wouldn't be happening if it weren't for the support of all the first responder community. And so there's just more and more things to come, and it comes because everybody works together. And as Priscilla said, I just appreciate all the help I've had from all the other COPE leaders, all the first responders, the whole community pulling together. And as Ariel said, if you look behind the curtain, as Marshall likes to say, when you need me most, I may not be there. So it's up to us. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo some of those same comments, to thank all the first responders here, and James and everyone who had, and especially Pat and Priscilla, who really pulled us all together, because each of us as different COPE leaders have different communities and different needs, but there's an underlying element of that we all share. And Mill Creek has seen this from pre-fire planning and putting together CWPP to going through the ringer of the fire, and now for the last 16 months dealing with the post-fire work, just reassessing priorities. The work Marshall and Priscilla helped us with, along with everyone at the county and James, in terms of going for some of the shaded fuel break funds from the county and implementing that, to just bringing our community, what's left of it, somewhat disparate now and scattered to the winds, together. The people that are there and the people that aren't selling and running really value this network we built up. It really is the only form of community left in some areas up there in Mill Creek. So it's really great to be able to share that, if only virtually and via email and Zoom. But we're starting to get together. We're having our second post-fire meeting next month in early January to reassess this year's priorities, and we'll bring those back to this group at the next meeting. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, both the first responders and the COPE groups, who've shared their skill sets, expertise, and communication. We're all learning to be a bit of a jack of all trades and an expert at a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects to the COPE mission, which is not necessarily bound by a regulatory government agency responsibilities, and can be somewhat nimble and meet the community's needs. But thank you all. The sense of encouragement as well as the practical advice is invaluable. And along those lines, if anyone is going forward with the vegetation management type grant with the county next month, I've got some expertise and lessons learned to share. If anybody wants to know what to put into an application or how best to write those things. My bandwidth is a little limited, but it's meetings like this that make me, want to just keep charging ahead. So thank you all for all your help.
Nicely said, Dan. Thank you. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Well, oh, there we go. Supervisor Gore, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing, Nancy, I was just wondering from your perspective is during peacetime, we have a COPE network that we work with, and all the things that we've talked about. CWPPs, Jeff with the Expo, Dan Shady Fuel Breaks. Anytime though that the Diablo starts to blow, we have this oh shit moment, pardon me. And what I do is I sit with my team and we start to reach out to people. And the first thing we do is we reach out to and folks on this crew. We start to call people, like the people who we were engaged in their community before, in many ways have become the COPE leaders, and others have gravitated towards it. So I guess the point I'm kind of interested in, Nancy, is that how we can make sure that it's not based upon relationships, but it's based on structure, right? So as much as we do SoCo Alert and other things like that, is my request would be for you and Chris, as you go through kind of this process of when we actualize any kind of an EOC, is that if there's a place that identifies, it lets these people know what's going on because they're hubs. Because for personally, I do it, but not all of us do it, and I don't want it to be based on my relationships with people or others. I don't know if you got anything on that. I have one other thing after that.
And I think, one of the things about COPE that I think highlights one of the important things about emergency management in general is that the relationships that you build before an event are always leveraged during an event. And that's why these networks are so critical, because this is really how we communicate in the first moments. So I think, part of what I do in the county and what Chris does also is we're building relationships in all different areas. So we have a list of people in all different areas of the county that we can communicate with immediately. COAD is one of those organizations that we lean on and reach out to, and who actually are sitting in the EOC now with us to help us spread information quickly through the nonprofit world, which I think is really critical as well. But I think, this COPE group and Map Your Neighborhood and the Fire Safe Councils and some of these other groups are all part of the list of people that we try to communicate with, and that have access to us as well, which I think is critical, that have my email address and can say, hey, we heard this, is this happening, is this true? And I think all of those pieces are really critical. I think if you look, kind of in a big picture of what does this COPE group look like compared to other areas and other regions and things, I think you'll find it hard to find a group that's as committed and as well led as this COPE Northern Sonoma County group is. If you look worldwide, when I talk to my partners in emergency management in different areas of the country as well as different areas of the world, they're always trying to figure out how do we build that kind of engagement in the community, because that's the sweet spot for preparedness as well as response, is an engaged community who is ready and willing to go and do things that need to be done ahead of time, as well as communicate in a response to make sure nobody's left behind. And there's just not an answer except for the excellent leadership that I can't build a grassroots organization. The grassroots organization has to come from the community. So these leaders that we've developed in Northern Sonoma County, as well as a few other spots in the county, are really the key for our communication in disaster, as well as my own preparedness efforts when I'm looking at the way that we, really try to step forward and stay in front of and empower the community to do what they need to do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I think one offer of partnership for the COPE leads would be to identify really a couple of key points, not, they always say the power of three. What are like three things we're working on? The reason I say that is because I think the biggest danger to our work is the world of those of us. The biggest danger to risk mitigation or risk management is actually risk aversion. It's because of things that we don't have good Samaritan laws, that we don't back people who are trying to reduce risk. It has to be too perfect to do veg management or prescribed fire. And so you never do what is up at an 80% level, because it has to be 100%, which means you can't get the permits, it doesn't cost out, it can't do these other things. And so it's almost an anachronism. It's like this weird kind of thing that you can't reduce risk because people are afraid of reducing risk at being held liable for something. So I feel like there could be a couple things that I would want to be a part of at either state law or with the National Advisory Council for FEMA and others that would support our efforts. And then the other thing I would say is for the COPE leads as well is that I would like to be putting in, it doesn't have, these grants don't have to be like multi-million-dollar grants. I would like to be teaming with you all to figure out workforce or deployment of training to go after BRIC grants that are based on human infrastructure, right? Like what is it that we get the funding for to deploy people? We talk about, like I've met with the Immigrant Defense Task Force, and there was a ton of individuals who were reviewing as a part of this implementation of cultural competency in our emergency plans, this SB 160 thing. They were critiquing our document, and rightfully so, but they were actually, what came up during it was this amazing woman named Daisy, who's undocumented, who was like, I want to be trained for CERT. And I would love all of our promotores, right? Like our Latin speakers who are doing this like health training in the community, we trained in this way, right? That's what it was. And like, especially, and also if you're talking about individuals who don't have the privilege that I have, that if I were not only to do it as my job and get paid for it, but if I have enough money that I can volunteer my staff time or my personal time, like there's a lot of people, if we want to get into underserved communities, that we need to, like I might need to pay them to go through CERT training. I might need to put a stipend that's equivalent for them to be able to not be working for 13 or 14 bucks an hour on the side and losing that, or might have to provide childcare. To be able to do that work, you got to support people. So anything that we can do to support that as a strategic investment in the future, I'd love to figure out what our like top three are with the COPE to fight for. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Anybody else have something to add to the conversation? Okay, I see nothing further. So we'll be closing the meeting early today. And I just want to also add my thanks to all of you. As you heard me mention earlier, this is really a model of communities working together that can be held up, not just regionally, but nationally as well as worldwide, about how you get leaders, how leaders work together, how they continue to foster the most important things in their community, which are these networks of neighbors together, because that people that are bound to their communities, working in their communities, stay in their communities. And these are important things when you're talking about an area like this that can be at very high risk, but yet we have people engaged in the community working every day to mitigate that risk. And that's really what has to happen. Is it has to happen at the individual level as well as the local level, state level, and the federal level. That we don't have anything if we don't have all of those levels working together. So COPE is really an amazing model for that. And I wish you all a very happy holiday. Priscilla, did you want to close the meeting by wishing everybody a happy holiday?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Yes, thanks everyone for being here. I'm so grateful to all of our guests that came today, our first responders and our government officials and others. And thank you all of you COPE leaders who came today. I know it's a busy time of year, but I just really wanted to make sure that you were all recognized and known for how important and as I said in my MailChimp, sacred the work is that you do. That connection with your neighbors and the people in your community, I think, is sacred. So enjoy your holidays, and we will get more work done in 2022, I hope, as we work together. Thanks again. Thank you, Nancy, for facilitating.